agenda is consideration of the minutes of the meeting held on April 14th, 2023.
I make a motion that we accept the minutes as written, Mr. Chairman.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Call for the question. All in favor of the motion signify by raising your right hand. The motion carries. Mr. LaFleur, the director's report.
Good morning, all. I'm not going to ask what the other guy looks like, Mr. Chairman.
He looks worse.
Well, good morning to everybody in the room. This is the 5th meeting of the Alabama Environmental Management Commission for FY 2023. There's been quite an active session of the Alabama legislature this year. There were several legislative matters I'll report on that could have a significant impact on the department. Budgetary funding matters are at the top of that list. Also on the list are several pieces of legislation impacting certain land division programs. Today's report will also update you on activities of the working group created to review and make recommendations on how to improve the state's response to the vegetative waste fire in St. Clair County. We'll also check on the status of the new field office and laboratory being constructed in Mobile and a new air quality monitor station also in Mobile. Finally, I'll recognize one of our personnel for achieving a significant professional milestone. For the last 5 years, about 6% of the department's operating budget has come from the state's general fund budget. The department is also relies on the general fund to provide the matching funds required to obtain federal state revolving fund and bipartisan infrastructure law allocations. I'm pleased to report that the FY24 general fund budget adopted by the legislature and signed by the governor provides our requested $4 million of operational funds plus an additional $750,000 unrequested operational funding and the necessary match funds to obtain the full federal state revolving fund and bipartisan infrastructure law allocations available to the state. In an effort to retain state employees and compensate for inflation, the governor proposed and the legislature approved a 2% across-the-board raise for all state employees effective October 1st. For approximately the last year, we've been focusing on the FY 2025 for the fiscal year 2025 when a significant increase in departmental funding will be necessary to cover the 5 years of inflation and increasing federal mandates, primarily in the department's water program, since our last funding increase. Although it provided funding for 2024, we were disappointed that the legislature did not advance a bill to provide targeted water program funding for FY 2025 and beyond. It was our hope to address the looming funding issues for the department well before FY 2025 arrived. It was not to be. While there was broad support from numerous governmental, business, agricultural, and industry groups, our message did not get to many members of the legislature in time to be successful for this session. We will be working with leadership in the House and Senate well ahead of the 2024 legislative session to present the benefits of adequately funding water quality regulatory activities in Alabama. Those benefits include assuring the water quality of for our citizens that our citizens deserve for safe drinking water and recreational water, relieving pressure on the general fund, and providing Alabama a competitive advantage in attracting new industry by having stable, regulated industry permit fees, maintaining departmental performance that keeps federal incursion to a minimum, and maintaining water quality that keeps industry costs to comply low. This has been an unusually active session of the legislature for legislation that does or could affect the department. 3 pieces of legislation impacting the department that did pass all relate to land division programs. The first is an amendment to the Solid Waste and Recyclable Materials Act, which the department operates under, dealing with when local approval is required for modification of landfill facilities. The bill was sponsored by landfill industry groups and is designed to clarify which modifications of landfill facilities require local approval. The local approval process requires the local governing body to formally consider specific factors that impact the local community, then provide public notice describing the proposed action, followed by a formal public comment period, and finally, the local governing body must consider and respond to public comments before the associated proposed permit modification can be requested from ADEM. If ADEM proposes to approve the permit modification, then an additional public notice and comment period is required before the permit can be issued. Provisions in the previously existing Solid Waste and Recyclable Materials Act dealing with when local approval is required are subject to varying interpretations. The adoption of the amendment during this session of the legislature clarifies the relevant provisions. The department supported the legislation. The second legislative action passed affecting the land division is an amendment to the Brownfields Voluntary Cleanup Program. The purpose of the legislation is to encourage the cleanup of brownfield sites, typically unused former industrial sites. The act relieves potentially responsible parties from certain state liability for future cleanup on sites where the potentially responsible party does a site investigation and then develops and implements a cleanup plan to address specified contaminants to current cleanup standards. Without the liability for future cleanup costs, the Act removes an impediment to the PRP selling the property, which in turn increases the likelihood the property can be returned to productive use. The department supported the legislation because it encourages the cleanup of properties that previously were sitting unused and not cleaned up. An additional benefit is the potential to increase the tax base for communities where the properties exist. The third legislative action that passed affecting the land division is an amendment to the Alabama Uniform Environmental Covenants Act that removes the requirement for an environmental covenant stating that the site was previously contaminated and subsequently remediated. The amendment is patterned after a similar action removing the requirement for an environmental covenant regarding underground storage tanks. The department did not support or oppose the current amendment for removing the requirement for environmental covenants on above-ground storage tanks, nor did the previous amendment removing environmental covenants on the underground storage tanks. Several items of proposed legislation that did not pass included one to make mandatory a fish consumption advisory and water quality notification program requiring a sign at each public boat ramp and every one of the approximately 30,000 points where treated wastewater is discharged. Since 2018, the department has, by its own initiative, had in place signage at all public and many private boat launches in Alabama with instructions on how to access helpful water quality information. The access methods include a QR code, internet web address, or live telephone contact. The information referenced on the existing ADEM signage includes discharge points information, fish consumption advisories, and much more information where those engaged in outdoor recreation can conveniently find it. Legislators determined that the current method used by ADEM accomplishes the same objectives in a more reasonable way than the proposed legislation. Another piece of proposed legislation that did not pass sought to promote so-called advanced recycling by statute. The department determined the beneficial issues addressed in the proposed legislation are already covered by ADEM rules and the statutory provisions to further promote recycling are unnecessary. ADEM, the most troublesome portion of the proposed legislation, sought to exempt materials from regulation that are currently regulated. The department opposed the legislation due to historical problems with abandoned materials from unsuccessful recycling operations that resulted in unauthorized dumps, which under proposed legislation the department would not have had authority to require cleanup. Moving on to an event that has had extensive media coverage during the last several months, there was considerable concern from those impacted by the smoke from a vegetative waste fire just recently extinguished in St. Clair County, and rightfully so. When state and local resources were determined to be inadequate, ADEM reached out to EPA for assistance. Although it took several steps, EPA did agree to provide its contractor working with EPA oversight to address the fire. This extraordinary incident revealed shortcomings in the ability, authority, and resources of the state and local governments to respond to situations that are outside the scope of regulated activities, but nonetheless pose risks to the public. ADEM formed a working group with representatives of government-related entities, including ADEM, the Alabama Emergency Management Agency, Alabama Forestry Commission, Association of County Commissioners, the Alabama League of Municipalities, Alabama Department of Agriculture and Industry, Alabama State Senate, and Alabama State House of Representatives. The objectives of the working group are to review the response to the vegetative waste disposal site fire in St. Clair County. This included each member of the working group reviewing the response to the fire from its own agency or constituents' perspective, identify shortcomings or gaps in the authority of state and local governments to respond to such emergencies. Part of that effort was to solicit and review input from the public. The group also compared the existing plan for responding to this type of emergency with the actual response to the fire emergency. Additional input from the governor's office, State Department of Insurance, and St. Clair County officials was obtained. The working group is now in the process of setting out its findings, including assessment of the current state of relevant statutes, regulations, and resource levels, and recommendations are being developed for improving the responsiveness to these types of incidents in the future. Next, a report on the status of construction of our Mobile field office and laboratory. Here is an earlier view of the whole site before the roof was complete. We were unable to take more recent aerial photos due to limitations on drone operations around the nearby airport. Mobile Bay and the Coast Guard station are just out of view beyond the top of the photo, and you can see Broad Street at the bottom. The boat storage building at the rear of the site is complete. You can see the distinctive large curved wall at the front of the office area of the building, and a second smaller curved wall about halfway back on the right where the lab area will begin. The main building, the lab foundations, the building walls, and the roofing are complete. The application of stucco on the exterior walls is nearly complete. Note the completed curb and gutters around the site and parking areas. Preparations are underway to install the rubber-modified asphalt made with recycled scrap tires in the drives and parking areas. You can also see the completed stormwater retention pond to the right. The next two slides show the interior wall framing being installed. First is the conference room at the front of the building. If you look closely, you can see some of the HVAC ductwork. and this next one showing some of the framing in the office area on the north side of the building. The plumbing, electrical, and HVAC systems are well underway, and windows are being installed. Office furnishings have been ordered. The project is approximately 70% complete, and completion is scheduled for mid to late summer. This final slide is the artist's rendering of what the finished building will look like. Another recent event in Mobile is the pending installation of a new PM10 air monitor. This monitor will complement the PM 2.5 monitors currently in the operating in the Mobile area. Particulate matter measuring 2.5 microns and smaller is of the greatest health concern. Data shows that the PM 2.5 levels are well under control. Several interested parties expressed a desire to monitor particulate matter up to the larger 10 micron measure. Also, although the data was developed over a period of many years in the past, it was found not to approach the level that would create a health concern. Working with EPA, a plan was developed and implemented to revisit the PM10 issue to confirm previous findings. The result is a pending installation of the new PM10 monitor. Last, but certainly not least, I'm pleased to introduce you to Mary Catherine Mouche. I'm terrible with names. Mouche. Mary Catherine, I apologize for mispronouncing, in our land division. As you know, we strongly encourage our personnel to develop professionally. One of the most significant milestones in the professional development of ADEM personnel comes with the educational achievement, work experience, and rigorous testing necessary to earn the title of professional engineer. Mary Catherine has done that, and I take the opportunity to have you join me in congratulating her. Thank you, Mary Catherine. Well done. Well done. That concludes today's report. If you have any questions, I'll be pleased to answer them.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
All right, third item on the agenda is a report from the commission chair, and today I do have a report. It is time to start another evaluation of Director LaFleur's job performance as part of the commission's upcoming ADEM Director Job Performance Evaluation. Written comments from the EMC members will be requested via memo from me. A notice providing the opportunity for interested persons to submit comments will be posted on the ADEM website and emailed to the advance notice of the commission meetings notification list. Comments on Director LaFleur's job performance should cover the period from October 15th, 2022 to July 31st, 2023. The deadline for receipt of comments for the upcoming evaluation, a compilation of the written comments received, will be compiled as part of the evaluation process. All right, brings us to agenda item 4, Bill Patterson Construction, Inc. versus ADEM EMC, docket number 22-02. Under agenda item 4, the commission has before it in this matter proposed orders from the hearing officer on the petition's motion for directed verdict dated April 3rd, 2023 on ADEM's motion to strike and dismiss, and the hearing officer's report and recommendations. Also before the commission are filings by the petitioner and ADEM. The petitioner filed a motion for directed verdict dated May 19th, 2023. An objection to the administrative law judge's findings of fact and conclusions of law, and alternative findings of fact and conclusions of law by the EMC. ADEM filed a reply to petitioner's objections to recommendation of hearing officer and a proposed order. I will entertain a motion from the commission regarding hearing officer's proposed order on the petitioner's motion for directed verdict dated April 3rd, 2023, or alternatively on petitioner's motion for directed verdict dated May 19, 2023.
Mr. Chairman, am I correct in assuming that Mr. Patterson is not here today?
That's my understanding.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm. All right. Do I have a motion?
Move to approve the hearing officer's recommendation to deny the petitioner's motion for directed verdict dated April 3rd, 2023.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Call for the question. All in favor of adopting the motion signify by raising your right hand. All opposed? The motion carries. All right. I will next entertain a motion from the commission regarding the hearing officer's recommendation to deny ADEM's motion to strike. Do I have a motion? Do I have a second? Any discussion? Call for the question. Everyone in favor of the motion signify by raising your right hand. All opposed? The motion carries. I'll now entertain a motion from the commission regarding the hearing officer's report and recommendation to the commission on the petitioner's alternative findings of fact and conclusions of law, or on ADEM's proposed order. The hearing officer recommends that the commission find that the petitioner failed to meet its burden of proof and approve as issued ADEM's order 22-024-AP issued to Bill Patterson Construction, Inc. for a debris pit in Robertsdale, Baldwin County, Alabama. The petitioner recommends that the commission withdraw the administrative order 22-024-AP and all fines and costs held for naught. ADEM recommends that the commission adopt the hearing officer's recommendations in full and reject the petitioner's objection and adopt its proposed order. Do I have a motion?
I move that we accept the hearing officer's report.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Call for the question. All in favor of the motion signify by raising your right hand. All opposed? The motion carries.
So we need to sign.
Oh, okay. All right. Is there any other business?
Yeah, we just have two to sign.
I'm sorry?
Yeah, we just have two places to sign.
Yes.
Seeing none, we'll move on to agenda item 6. The date of the next commission meeting is August 11th, 2023. Are all commissioners here planning to be present? All right. It's my understanding we do not have any public comments today. So I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Do I have a second? Second. Call to the question. All in favor of the motion, signify by raising your right hand. We are adjourned. Stay here.